The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Wednesday, 29th of April, 2026. We're live here at CHD TV. We have some breaking news for you. We're going to go straight to Suzanne Burdick. So many of you know the name Suzanne Burdick because Mary and I talk about that every single Sunday and all the amazing articles that she does. She's a senior journalist at The Defender, and she's here with us this morning to talk to us about breaking news that will be happening at about 10 o'clock today from The Defender. So good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning, Polly. I'm so glad to be here with you today. So there is big breaking news, and I'm really glad to be helping people understand why it's such a big deal. What it is Senator Ron Johnson today is releasing a new report that shows that senior level Biden officials or health officials under the Biden administration refused to use a state-of-the-art statistical tool for monitoring VAERS reports following COVID vaccination, even though they knew that the tool that they were using to analyze VAERS reports, the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System reports, that the tool they had been using failed to pick up on safety signals, including cardiac death and many others.
Right, so what are some of these adverse events that we're talking about? What's the real cover-up here?
So the cover up is that, so last month we found out, because Ron Johnson has been getting many, many documents back after he subpoenaed the Department of Health and Human Services for all communications and records regarding how they've been handling COVID-19 vaccine safety throughout the pandemic. So last month we already knew that the FDA realized early in the pandemic that the tool it was using to monitor VAERS reports was essentially useless, but they used it anyway. This month, what we found out today is that not only did they know that the tool that they had been using was essentially useless, but that there was an improved version created by the actual chief statistician who invented the original version. He created an improved version that accounted for what's called masking, which I can explain in a moment, that therefore the improved version was going to actually accurately detect safety signals that they knew that the broken tool wouldn't detect. And instead of using that improved tool, they just kept on using the broken tool. So, for instance, some of the adverse events that the inventor, the chief statistician, his name was William Dumichel, he and an FDA researcher who has a lot of expertise in data mining as well, her name is Anna Zarfman, they eventually went on in 2022 and they wrote a paper published in Drug Safety that showed how effective this improved tool was and how terrible the old tool was at accurately detecting safety signals. And they found and reported that the improved tool found, for instance, around 25 statistically significant safety signals that the old tool failed to pick up on. And these were big things like sudden cardiac death, tinnitus, Bell's palsy, facial paralysis, pulmonary embolism, pulmonary infarction, and death in general. And despite this, even after Zarfman emailed this peer-reviewed 2022 article showing the effectiveness of the tool, she emailed it to the then commissioner of the FDA, Robert Galliff. He just essentially, he responded, "Thanks, these are good." And there's no evidence that he took action to implement the tool.
Yeah, but Suzanne, why? I think this is a question everybody, why would you do that? Why? Why the cover-up? Why not use the new improved tool?
That is a fantastic question, Polly. So, what we have right now are emails, right? So we essentially have the bones and we're trying to sketch the dinosaur. And unfortunately, there are still a lot of unanswered questions in particular, and I can talk more about this in a second as well. What we found in this trove of emails was evidence that FDA and CDC officials had been receiving many FOIA requests from organizations like Children's Health Defense to get communications regarding how they were monitoring VAERS COVID-19 vaccine reports. And because of that, they avoided talking about their analyses in emails. So to your question of why would they do this, the only thing that I have seen is that there was this hesitancy to start using something that they hadn't used in the past in the middle of a pandemic. However, the documents that we have thus far, so Ron Johnson today is releasing 600 pages of emails. And when you look at these emails together, they paint a pretty thorough picture of how Dr. Zarfman and Dr. Dumichel repeatedly told FDA officials that this improved tool was the state-of-the-art tool that accounted for masking. And I should break down for a second so that people understand what masking is. Have you heard that term before?
Maybe not in the context you're using it. Explain.
Yeah, we're not talking about COVID masking and just covering your face. So masking, and I'll be careful to not get crazy into the statistical jargon, but what you need to understand is that the FDA was going to monitor VAERS using one statistical method called EB data mining, and the CDC was going to monitor VAERS using a different statistical method. And that in that way, it was going to be extra thorough because we've got two different methods to analyze VAERS, to make sure we're on top of it, to make sure that if there are any safety signals, we find them. So the method that the FDA used is called empirical Bayesian data mining, EB data mining. Now, data mining is a kind of disproportionality analysis that looks at kind of making comparisons in the data set and flags instances when we see a disproportionate amount of a particular kind of injury being reported. But the analysis can be skewed depending on what is in the data set. And I'll give you an example. For instance, if I wanted to do an analysis to figure out whether arsenic is toxic, if I had arsenic in the data set and saline solution, salt, I would clearly see that arsenic is way more toxic than salt water, right? However, if I put into the data set arsenic and lead and salt water, the toxicity of lead, so lead is toxic and arsenic is toxic, and since there's two toxic things in there, we're not going to get the safety signal that flags a disproportionate amount of toxicity being reported. And that's essentially what happened in the COVID-19 pandemic, because all of a sudden VAERS was flooded with an unprecedented number of reports following the Moderna shot, following the Pfizer shot. And there were so many COVID-19 vaccine reports that it essentially created a situation in which the toxicity from these various vaccines masked the toxicity of the vaccines. So they covered them up. And this happened for really obvious safety signals like myocarditis, pericarditis. It's known that the EB data mining method that the FDA used didn't flag for those things that are obvious, right? And so what this improved tool did was it accounted for masking. It used a regression model to handle all of those other, things in the data set so that the things that the original model had been masking could be detected.
Suzanne, so for people listening, there's some people that are just fed up with us talking about COVID the whole time, but it's so important that we break down what happened. And this is the beginning of breakdown, but there doesn't seem to be any accountability for any of this. We break the news, Ron Johnson does his bit, and then it all goes silent. What do you anticipate will happen from this breaking news?
On that, I am encouraged. Last night, I spoke with some sources familiar with the investigation who confirmed that this report is simply an interim report, so it's not the final report. So again, for those who don't know, Senator Ron Johnson is the chairman of the Congressional Subcommittee on Permanent Investigations, and he is very dedicated to uncovering the truth as best as we can find it, knowing that truth is always somewhat out of reach, right? But he's very committed to investigating what happened during the COVID-19 pandemic, specifically regarding how well safety was monitored and how are the COVID-19 vaccine injured being treated. So this report is not the last. I have been told that the investigators in Johnson's office are working diligently, trying to reach out to anyone whose name is mentioned in these documents. Senator Ron Johnson's office has already reached out last month to a couple of former FDA and CDC officials And there will likely be more in the coming months. So I would say stay tuned. And on that, this afternoon at 2:30 Eastern, Senator Ron Johnson is hosting a hearing of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations on this topic of how Biden health officials purposely turned a blind eye to COVID-19 vaccine safety signals.
Yes, and our senior scientist at Children's Health Defense will be speaking this afternoon. So please stay tuned to the breaking news alerts for the Defender and the breaking news alerts for CHD TV. There are two different breaking news alerts. Doesn't cost you anything. You just sign up. So they will break news. The Defender will break news on anything relevant to everything Suzanne's talking about now. And we will be live streaming from the hearing as it happens with our Carl there on the scene. I'm so proud of our science department as well. Suzanne, is there anything that our people need to know more about this breaking news?
Well, I would say definitely take a look at the Defender's article that should be in your email now. If not, if you just go to childrenshealthdefense.org, you can easily sign up for the newsletter there. And just, I do want to frame the larger context. So I did not go into this. When I approach things that I'm reporting on, I really try to give the benefit of the doubt. Like you're saying, Polly, asking that question of why would they do that? And allowing them to answer, right? Looking for the documents that shows. I would love it if the answer upon investigating was that there were, many, many senior Biden era health officials who truly were wanting to find out what are the safety signals with the COVID vaccines. However, unfortunately, what we have found out thus far is that that's not been the case. So again, today, we're discovering that the FDA could have used an improved tool that would have effectively found masked, signals that this other method had been masking, and they opted to not use it. They, in fact, told the researcher to cease and desist using it and said that it might, fuel anti-vaccination rhetoric. The larger context here, Polly, that people need to understand is that the CDC, so they were also supposed to be monitoring VAERS using a different method called PRR. I don't need to get into that, but essentially, CHD, years ago, we FOIA'd them to be like, hey, are you doing what you said you were going to do? And in response, they kind of hemmed and hawed and gave inconsistent answers and eventually said, we stopped doing our analyses. And when we pressed them on why, and Senator Johnson as well wrote to them being like, why are you not doing what you said you were going to do? Rochelle Walensky told Johnson an email, and we also got this from the CDC, that, well, it's that the FDA's method, this EB data mining, that's really the gold standard. And since the FDA is doing the analysis of VAERS, we at CDC, this PRR method, it's not that good. So we're just not going to be doing it. So the big takeaway here, Polly, is that the FDA and the CDC, they were responsible for monitoring VAERS. The CDC said, oh, we're going to kind of basically stop doing it because our method isn't the best, because the FDA's method is better. The FDA method was broken. They knew that. And instead of using an improved method, they kept on using the broken method and published papers using the broken method in support of the safety of COVID-19 vaccines.
And Suzanne, the reason why you do this, dig deep into this, and the Defender as well, CHD TV as well, is because so many people were hurt. And that's the bottom line. We do not even begin to touch the surface of how many people were killed by the shot and injured for life by the shot. And I want to thank you for your work and the Defender team. If it wasn't for the Defender viewers, CHD TV would not be what it is, because we rely on the Defender, because they fact check everything thoroughly. Just spend a second telling us about, because you work so hard, you and your team, and Catherine and the team. You don't just throw out anything. Like, we maybe do an interview, but it's not the same as what they do at the Defender. That's why we haven't been sued, because of the Defender.
Thanks, Polly. I appreciate that, and that the Defender, so we are CHD's News and Views website. We work with CHD TV, right? Hand in hand, we're a team. However, because of the nature of putting things in print, we want to do things differently than what the mainstream does. So many mainstream news articles that you read, they will print statements that make assertions, and you have no idea where that assertion came from or their data backing it up. At the Defender, our method, you'll notice that our articles are riddled with many, many hyperlinks. And the reason is that we have a practice of anything that we assert as a fact, we have to provide the source for that. Any opinion that we write, we have to attribute where did we hear that opinion, so that there's absolute transparency, that the people reading our articles can go to the primary sources themselves, they can reach their own conclusions, they can know what people said, rather than it being kind of this amorphous voice of some outlet spinning some particular narrative that they want people to adopt.
So everybody, it's free. This is what's so wonderful about the Defender and CHGTV. We are free. It doesn't cost you anything. So sign up for the Defender. You will get an email Monday to Friday with the breaking news that we cover the next day. So if you want it before CHGTV, sign up to the Defender. And they have a Substack. Can you tell us about the Substack?
So we have a Substack channel. If you just simply go on Substack and search The Defender, we post all of our articles there as well. So if you're on Substack and you like to restack articles, share them that way. We're also starting to include videos on our Substack channel of either summaries of our articles or interviews that we do with people that we have interviewed in our pieces. So there's a lot happening, Polly. It's a really exciting time.
Very exciting. Thank you so much. What a treat for our viewers to actually meet you in person. Suzanne Burdick, all the work you do. We talk about you a lot, so it's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for the breaking news segment this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Polly. Take care.
All right, everyone, we are now going to go to a story that you have got to listen to the story. Kelly and Kent, do come on now, because this is something that is going to shock you all, and it's something that's so important that we know about. So Kelly, this is your story, and this is Kent, her husband, and thank you both for being here. Can you take us right back to before this happened and describe how you were, because you were fit and athletic, and talk to us about how you were before the injury.
Before I had the injury, I was full of life. Active mom, athletic, volunteer. Man, I just was full of life. I loved running, biking, walking, never having to wake up and think about breathing. That was just a gift that we're all given. And sorry, it's so hard to think about where I'm at today versus where I was at.
I know, and thank you for being here. So, okay, so you are married. Kent, you're in the military. And talk us through how Kelly was coming back into work, very excited to go back to work, and it was the COVID era, right?
Yes. So I was active duty until 2014. And so when we were stationed overseas, Kelly had to follow me. I was stationed in Italy. So when she was over there with me, the status of forces agreement, she couldn't work there. So she wasn't able to earn any kind of disability credits or anything that would apply today. So she was healthy then. We didn't think about that. Nobody thinks about that until you get an injury. So she was staying home raising our child. We're a Christian family and really value the mother staying in the home or the father staying in the home and helping raise the children. So we came back overseas, 2015. We got sent down to South Carolina with the FAA. I'm an air traffic controller. Got out of the military. Later, I went back into the reserves, present day now. But we got into South Carolina, and she continued to raise our children. We had another daughter. And when our second daughter was old enough, she's like, hey, I'm a hairstylist. This is what I did in the past. This is what I still want to do. Like, I'm ready to go back to work. So unfortunately, that year was January of 2020. And that is when she decided to reenter the workforce. And January of 2020 is when she went back to work, and she was elated, beyond excited. And unfortunately, that was the worst choice that she could have made.
Yeah. So what happens now is horrific. So Kelly, are you able to continue the story?
Yes,
Okay.
I am. So my daughter was 2. I decided to go back into the workforce, and when the pandemic hit, I returned back to work, and I was mandated. It was a CDC COVID cleaning mandate, and I was told that I had to clean in between each guest. And when I went into work, I started experiencing my very first symptom was burning in my nose. Came home, took off my mask. It went away. Went back to work, returned back to work, started experiencing burning in my nose and now in my throat. Came home, took off my mask, and went back to work. And then it went to my chest. And when it went to my chest, never went away. And I had to go seek, emergency care that led to specialists. And that's really where my nightmare started. And I never recovered from that day. When I went to the specialist, that's where I learned I have reactive airway dysfunction. And it was determined from the chemicals that I was using in the workplace. And I went to my employer, and that's where I had asked her for workers' compensation.
So one thing Kelly didn't mention was specifically, you showed a picture of it, was that bottle of Lysol. That was never used in the salon. Prior to the CDC mandate, they never used that cleaner. And when the CDC mandate came down that, hey, you've got to make sure that you're disinfecting, they didn't really give very good guidelines to the employers on like what exactly to use. So that happened to be what her employer chose to use. And there is a warning on that exact bottle of Lysol that there has to be some hazard communication done because of the danger of an ingredient. And right there. So there's quats inside of that, and they're known to cause people who are completely healthy lungs. If you have an exposure to it that's at too high of a level, it can physically give you reactive airways, asthma, respiratory problems from that. And unfortunately, because the building was shut down from the COVID shutdown, when they reopened the building downtown, Charleston's an old city, so it had HVAC issues. So there was no ventilation. So she just got met with this just perfect chain of events of having this new CDC guideline, having this new chemical in the workplace, no communication to her about the danger of it, no ventilation. And, she was going back because everybody was being called back to like, hey, do your duty, go back to work, which is what she did. And unfortunately, because she was the only one who did it, she got injured from this.
So we're talking about Lysol. Is there any other chemical?
Yes. So Kelly can mention that.
So when you use hair color, it's also with there's ammonia as well. And there were other cleaners, but the cleaner that was provided to me at my desk and at every station, it was the liquid Lysol. And that's what I was using in between each guest. So every time somebody came to my chair, they would leave, and then I was required to clean. And that's really where I started to experience the burning in my nose and my throat. But I was also wearing a mask. And like I said, I come home and it went away. And I just thought, well, at first I thought maybe this is the mask. I've never worn a mask before. Well, definitely it was not the mask. It was the cleaning, the chemicals that I was using.
And you've been to doctors and they've confirmed that this is what you've been dealing with. I bet that was awful going to all the doctors and getting through that.
Undescribable.
Still going.
My entire life now is completely wrapped up around specialists, appointments, doctors, therapies. It's overwhelming a job in itself.
And I mean, I can imagine what you're going through because we've gone through it with the vaccines and various different issues. Family and friends thinking that you're crazy. Have you experienced that? Because that's what happens with us when we talk about these things.
I absolutely experienced that in 2020. I was mocked and really looked down upon when I was struggling to breathe, coughing in public. Everybody, when you see somebody who I have an invisible injury. And when I'm coughing, when I get exposed to an irritant and it triggers my airways, I go into this horrendous coughing fits where I cannot breathe. I can't catch my breath, and that becomes a rescue situation for me. And I cannot tell you how many times during 2020 that the nasty stares, the comments, me wearing a mask. I have to wear a mask in my car sometimes by myself. I wear a mask in present day all the time now with my kids. I'll be the mom at a beach and I have to put a mask on because somebody sprayed something or lights up a cigarette. And I cannot tell you how judged I was for coughing and struggling to breathe in 2020, even in doctors' waiting rooms.
I am so grateful that you're doing this story. We're going to get to do some more questions in a second, but I just want to say that there are many people that use this Lysol stuff in their houses. And if it did that to you, can you imagine what it does to a baby being around it or a child?
Holly, that's the interesting part, is that there's very little. I have not found much awareness in this area, and your lungs are such a vital organ. Like,
And they quietly list it on the bottle that it can give you asthma. Like it's listed, the specific brand that's in that photo. Every brand has slightly different chemical variations, but the quats that are in that bottle right there, it literally listed online that it can give you asthma.
And so, what do you use to clean now? I mean,
that is such a strugel. If
it's allowed to be advertised, we use a product called Branch Basics. It doesn't bother her lungs.
Yep.
It doesn't have a scent. That you use water, just the unscented clear soap that's unscented. We'll do that with hot water, peroxide, baking soda, vinegar, anything that's not a chemical. Because unfortunately, pretty much any synthetic perfume, smoke, all that stuff will inflame, and it's in her bronchioles that inflame. So it causes her to hyperventilate, to keep air getting in. And we even went as far as the Mayo Clinic to try to see if there's anything that could be done. And there's no way to reverse it. You can only try to battle the symptoms with medication.
And I can't even cope with people's perfume. People who wear perfume or whatever. It's so disgusting. I mean, sorry to put viewers who do it, but it affects us so deeply.
Yes. And the biggest one for me is cigarette smoke.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you exceeded the statute of limitations to appeal the workers' compensation denial. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, she usually likes me to try to help her with the legal stuff, just because it's very overwhelming. So when it first happened, when she first got that notification, hey, you can't go into a salon again. This is a lung injury. It's from these chemicals. You can't go back into a salon. At that moment, she alerted her employer that she needed to start the workers' compensation process, which they did immediately. And the company reached out to us, and they made us feel like they were our advocate, our representation. They were very like, hey, we want to get you through this claim as fast as we can. Send us this, and this. And because it was a lung injury, we found out after the fact that those kind of invisible injuries that was from an inhalant, they're pretty much always going to deny out of the gate. From our understanding, talking to people after the fact, because it's easy to deny. So that's what happened. They denied us. And this was 2020. All the offices were shut down, couldn't get a hold of anybody. So when we got the denial letter, we're like, well, shoot, this doesn't make sense. So we reached out to the state, couldn't get an answer. We reached out to several lawyers, but because she had just started and she was commission-based, she didn't really make a lot. So nobody who wanted to take it on a contingency basis, nobody wanted to take the case. And during this process, nobody mentioned anything about a statute to us. We had no idea of our rights. We didn't know how this was supposed to work. We just knew that we went to her employer and said, hey, she's injured. We need to start this process. So when we got that denial letter and we got turned down by lawyers and nobody at the state would answer, we just kind of assumed that the system had spoken and that was the answer. And it was a big struggle, as you can tell, when she goes back and talks about this, like it changed her life. So we were in counseling at church, and our pastor even said, he's like, listen, you guys kind of tried everything you could. So I think at this point, it's best you just put that down and just try to learn how to live with this, which is what we did. And then when we were beyond the statute, we found out that it was free to appeal. We didn't need a lawyer. And so when we reached out to the state, I actually spoke with the Attorney General, Alan Wilson, our state rep, Mark Smith. They did a personal Zoom call with us and tried to figure out, was there a law the state missed? And the answer is no. The state is not required to notify an injured worker of their appeal rights. It's only a courtesy that they send out a notice. And that notice does not have to guarantee that it gets in her hands. And during 2020, we never got it. So what we did is we asked ourselves, had we known that, we would have been able to get some type of support financially for all the medical stuff that she was going through and being not able to work anymore. So we got with Mark and I said, hey, if the insurance company was required to notify the injured worker that they can appeal, and this is how you do it, and you have a certain amount of time to do it, we would have never missed that statute. We would have known what to do. And so we've got a bill right now in South Carolina State House, a House Bill 4750, Injured Workers Transparency Act, that all it does is it changes the verbiage that makes it mandatory that the insurance company must notify the worker. If you're going to deny the worker, you have to let them know what their appeal rights are and how long they have. Because had we known that, this would be very different for the support she would have got from the injury. As it stands, she didn't get anything. And
so you still don't get anything. You've got no disability benefit at all.
Unfortunately, there's two aspects to this. Short-term disability through workers' comp that's one failure. Long-term disability through Social Security, you have to pay into that with work credits. Well, as we mentioned before, she was a stay-at-home mom and supported me as an active duty spouse overseas, so she wasn't working. So when she re-entered the workforce, that's a vulnerability that we should address. Is these moms and dads that go back into the workforce after raising children, they don't have the credits to protect them if they get injured. And more so, how are they addressing the COVID era injuries that were forced upon people and they didn't have the credits? Like, the government made these rules and they forced this down on people, and you got an injury and now they're just like, sorry, you don't have the work credits.
It's horrific. I feel like you two are the perfect people to fight this and raise the alarm. So you both speak so well on this. Kelly, I know this is hard, but do you think you could try and tell our viewers what this has taken from your life? So how your life is today? I know this is hard.
Yeah.
It's really important.
I have 2 children. Being a mother with a long disability is extraordinarily difficult. Something as simple as going and getting groceries, even something as simple as sitting in my own backyard. We now live next to a chain smoker, and I don't even have that freedom anymore at my own home. And something as simple as going and sitting in a church service, something as simple as going to a doctor's office, it is extremely difficult to live around. And it doesn't really come with a manual or a lot of support. And I mean, daily, when you are struggling to actually just simply breathe, that's like the top of the pyramid in life is breath. It's like a domino effect of things after that. The fatigue, the exhaustion. I mean, they're very simple tasks can become extremely difficult. And I really get almost at a loss of words to try to bring light how difficult life is when you have compromised lungs. It is extremely difficult.
And Kelly, is this permanent damage? Is there anything that can be done?
No. This is for the rest of my life.
So sorry. We're so sorry this happened, but we're so grateful to you for talking about this. I mean, a lot of people just don't know that these chemicals.
Right. You're so right.
I'm sorry you had to take this to be able to warn us all. And what's your message to our viewers?
You want to go ahead?
So your message.
Look what this has done to me. Who's going to stand up and do something about it? And one other thing is, I really hope that when people do things in their daily life, that I can bring some awareness to lung disabilities. I feel like there's really not a whole lot of understanding or awareness for that type of disability. And I'm asking any lawmaker who is listening to this right now to take a stand. Make it right.
And what would you like to see happen? The chemicals taken out of cleaning, because it's not just Lysol, is it? I mean, there's so many dangerous chemicals out there in cleaning products.
Yeah, so I would love to see more advocacy for cleaning. I would love to see, maybe more education for workers who go into work and are, have to use these cleaners. But the biggest thing too is the House bill that we have. It's the injured workers transparency. I don't see any transparency in this system here in South Carolina. And I don't feel like this is a complicated bill. It's very simple. I feel like change and proceed, it just will provide transparency to the workers so they know their rights, especially if it's not a mandate that the state sends you your rights. I mean, it just opens a window. And but maybe I really do believe that there just needs to be way more awareness for when you use chemicals.
Yeah, absolutely. And Kent?
Yeah, so the kind of two things. One is kind of on the human nature aspect of it is when you hear this story, like prior to Kelly's injury, we did not know that this is something that could happen. We did not know that somebody putting 4 squirts of cologne on and then going, into a building or to church could actually prevent somebody else from attending. So just once you hear this story, maybe think to yourself, if you are gonna use things that are extremely scented to not go overboard. Think about that person that might be sitting next to you. I know it smells nice, but to some people it restricts breathing. So that's just the human aspect, especially to smokers. If you're a smoker, please don't do it at the beach. Please don't do it at parks. We were forced to have to push law changes in our own town because people just, they would smoke around you at a park, and you're harming other people. So please consider that. And then as on a law aspect, is any lawmakers that hear this story, like realize that people are getting injured at work and sometimes it's unavoidable. But what you can change is you might not be able to change the fact that someone got injured, but you can change the laws and the procedures that follow to give them support and, to help them through that process.
Kelly and Kent, thank you so much for being on this morning. You're both an incredible couple, and I was so grateful to you for warning us about this. And I hope you'll keep us updated on how your journey goes.
For sure.
Thank you, Kelly.
And we do really appreciate it. I'm so sorry, Kelly, that this happened to you.
I appreciate this. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you for being on. Okay, viewers, so now we're going to go to Ray Flores, who has an interview for you. So over to Ray.
Good morning, CHD. This is Ray Flores, Senior Outside Counsel for Children's Health Defense. I'm bringing you one more episode of Transformation, Healing, and Philosophy. It is my honor to bring on Frank Ferrante. He is the subject of the documentary, May I Be Frank. Here's the trailer.
When I found drugs, I thought this was a secret they were keeping from me. I really did. I thought, holy, this is how you get through life. This is how you do it. And I realized I started to feel the way I thought I was supposed to feel. I was supposed to feel like John Wayne, but I didn't. I felt like Gumby.
Frank's a heavy-set Italian from Brooklyn, New York, sort of obnoxious.
Are you talking to me?
But, has got a really endearing way of being.
Frank's one of those guys, he walks in and before he knows anyone in the room, he's already commenting about the space or making a joke.
The whole thing started off when Frank came in, Cafe Gratitude, a mostly raw food restaurant, and we have a question of the day. And the question of the day was, what do you want to do before you die? And Frank said, I want to fall in love one more time. I don't think anyone will love me with this body that I'm wearing because I don't love myself.
I'm taking a slew of other medications. In the morning, I practically take a fistful of pills that, I don't really even know what they're doing. And I feel really terrible about it, quite frankly.
This propelled me into action, and I just was like, you want to do an experiment? How about you come in here and you eat this food, you allow us to be your transformational cheerleaders so that you can shed whatever you're carrying, the shame, the weight, the discontent, and really love yourself so that someone else can love you.
Breakfast. This looks like it should be mowed.
It actually was mowed, and then it turned into that. Oh God, he's doing it champ style.
Every muscle in my body is about to split in half right now.
If we can heal the self-diminishing aspect of Frank, that's going to change a lot of aspects of his life.
It's nice to meet you. No, I'm not from outer space.
Repeat after me.
Yes, sir.
I, Frank.
I, Frank.
Do love me.
Do love me. I am perfect health. Radiant beauty. It feels terrible.
This is what you want.
All right. Okay. I keep thinking every day, well, if something will happen today to create a shift, somewhere in me I believe that things are going to change.
What would love do now?
It's just that I don't see how.
What would love do now? I want to be a friend.
But I don't think that the pain you cause other people can be separated from the pain that you incur on yourself.
I want to be a friend.
I'm sorry I hurt a lot of people. I'm really sorry.
Will you? I'm gonna live my life.
Shyla said, you know, your life will change.
I'm gonna live my life. I'm gonna make it work. I'm gonna fly so high you won't see me hesitate.
It happens to some people.
Never to come down again.
All of that has helped me come back to the person I was supposed to be in the first place.
I wanna be a friend.
That was amazing. First, I have two disclaimers. Number one, this is not intended to be medical advice, so please consult your doctor. Second, our guest is not my friend, Frank Ferrante, the other Frank Ferrante, the famous Groucho Marx impersonator without his makeup, and there have been mix-ups before. Today's discussion is not about diet per se, it's about transformation, creating a new you. Decades of bad habits do not disappear by eating different French fries or by eating more burgers. It's about a new mindset. There is no clearer example of the journey of radical transformation than this documentary, May I Be Frank. Purging the body of toxins is a spiritual transformation as well. Good health is an art, not a science. It's my honor to bring on my friend, the other, Frank Ferrante. Welcome, Frank.
Hi, Ray. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, man. So your journey led you from West LA, like me, to the Southwest. Is that correct? You're living in...
Well, it started out in Brooklyn, actually. It was a circuitous route by the time I got to Los Angeles, but yeah. And now I'm in the vortex of Sedona.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. You know, a lot of times in life, you know, the real healers are not found in the yellow pages. You run into them when you're ready, when you're called upon to share something important with the world, and it takes a lot of courage to follow that inspiration and to follow that intuition. Anybody can run away from it and just go back to what's convenient. You know, you can either lean or leap, right? But the grace lies when you leap, right? So your transformation began by accident at Cafe Gratitude. Please explain what that was.
Well, that was another chapter of the journey. There was certainly stuff before that. I think sometimes opportunities arise when, just sort of arbitrarily. But what happened with gratitude was that I was at the time, I was about 100, hovering around 300 more or less, and 300 pounds, pre-diabetic, depressed, hepatitis C, just a whole host of things that certainly, I wasn't in a good place. And when I saw what happened, when I saw Cafe Gratitude, I was in San Francisco at the time, and this thing with signs, people get signs that sometimes they hear something 3 times a day or within a day, or a book is sticking out of a shelf. But I needed a neon flashing sign because I'm smart that way. Anyway, I went in and I really thought, I'm in the 12-step world, and in the 12-step world, gratitude is a central virtue. And I saw this place at Cafe Gratitude, and I thought somebody from the 12-step world was being clever with the title of a restaurant, of a cafe. And instead, what I discovered was a raw food and vegan restaurant. And at the time, I thought vegan was a planet. I didn't know anything about that world. Was not interested in that world, but I went to this place thinking it was a coffee shop and I was going to see a bunch of recovering people in there. And, I got to the door and little bell rang, and I was met with a barrage of salutations. Hi, welcome, glad you're here, and all that. And then I looked around, and there was no coffee machine and no stove. And, as I'm looking around, this kid walks up to me and goes, welcome to Cafe Gratitude. And I shook his hand and I said, hey, man, I had to come here in Cafe Gratitude. I figured somebody here is in recovery. To which he replied, "We're all recovering from something, aren't we?" And so I immediately knew he wasn't in that world and figured everybody's so happy they smoked a joint before going to work. But I kept going there because when you're that overweight, I was so lonely. I would ring my own doorbell to hear what a visitor would sound like, and they were so warm, and I kept going. And I wasn't interested in the food. I was more interested in the warmth that I was so desperate for. And at one point, they come to my table, and they had this thing called the question of the day, sort of to generate meaningful conversation. And, so what's your hero or who inspires you, that kind of thing. Well, this one day, the question was, what do you want to do before you die? And I got sad for a moment, and I thought, I'd like to fall in love one more time before I die. But look at this. Who's going to fall in love with this? And unbeknownst to me, they had been thinking about doing something similar to that movie Supersize Me, but they couldn't find a character that would be appropriate, because who goes into raw food vegan restaurants, White guys with dreadlocks and skinny jeans, and then, in lumbers in this half a gangster from Brooklyn, and they said, and they came over to my table and they said, we want to do this film that's the opposite of Supersize Me, and go to holistic health practitioners, do colonics, and eat this food. We want to film it. We want you to be the guy.
Wow, that's wild.
Ray, I thought nothing of it. These guys they were so young, they could have shared a razor for 6 months. It still would be sharp. So I didn't give it any thought. I said, sure, why not? And the next thing I know, they start following me around. They went to Home Depot, got PVC pipe for a boom mic. They had a little camera, and they're just following me around. I gave them the keys to my apartment. I told them, come on anytime. And I signed an agreement that I would do everything they said for 42 days.
Wow.
Which was odd because I was like it was in my 50s. They were in their 20s. And here I am submitting to the will of these 20-something kids with skinny jeans. And thus began this journey. And initially, and I'll be brief, initially it was kind of going to be a film about this food and that paradigm. It's kind of going to be a cheesy infomercial about cafe gratitude. But what happened was there were these fractured relationships in my orbit. And then instead of becoming a film about food and nutrition, it became a film about love and redemption.
So much of what we purge when we cleanse is emotional. I remember David Wolf once saying that people are living in the past because they're eating the past or they're retaining the past, in their bodies. And so then when you get rid of those, those crutches, those demons, whatever is inside of you, it's difficult because they were the best friend you ever had, so it seems. So it's very difficult to go through a process. And so what I was hoping you could do was at least explain to people that it's more than just switching French fries or eating more burgers if you want to get healthy again. I mean, it is, akin to an exorcism of the soul, of the body, and everything else, right? I mean, when you first started eating like that, what did you feel like?
Well, when I first started doing it, I keep in mind, I know it sounded like a speed bump. The devastating effect of loneliness. I mean, I was so lonely, and so I started doing this food thing, and I mean, really, it was interesting. It was interesting, and it was new, and what enabled me to continue and stay on the program were the fledgling relationships that were beginning to grow, and I became very fond of these three young guys and the community around them.
Right.
And so it started with really and this is just my experience. I'm not like sitting on a mountaintop dispensing wisdom. But I can tell you with sincerity my experience, and so these relationships became valuable to me. And so whenever I felt like veering from it, when I wanted a piece of fried chicken or whatever, I thought of these people, and that pulled me through. But I didn't realize that what my soul's yearning was to connect, to fully participate in the cycle of love, to love and to be loved, and to feel a sense of belonging. Which, by the way, fitting in is people I try to fit in. It's the opposite of belonging, according to Brene Brown. But so I started to feel a sense of belonging, and which deepened my commitment to my promise to follow this program, because there's a contract, not a contract, a legally enforceable document, but a heart-based contract, an agreement, and rooted in love, really. And so I started to follow that. And you're right. You're absolutely right about the difficulty of making those transitions and those transformations, and they start incrementally. Some people have, there are those people that have a really strong psychic change and really, like sort of spontaneously shift into a different paradigm. That wasn't my experience. I had to do it incrementally.
Yeah, it's interesting to me. You keep talking about them as being 20 somethings, and one of the most remarkable things to me about the raw food movement was that everybody was so wise way beyond their years, and they kind of got into a very primal place of, anti-intellectualism and just kind of a raw attitude, basic, straightforward, loving attitude. And when you talk about love, I also noticed from reading your book that it was all about a universal love and a consciousness more than just, a personal one-on-one relationship, right?
Well, first of all, let me just tell you that I'm so flattered that you actually read the book. Thank you for doing that, man. Yes, it really. The food is a part of it, and what you're referring to, I experienced too. Was a witness to that when it becomes like a religion, and sort of an evangelical kind of posture that is rather off-putting to me, because I grew up in a very, very, very strict religious environment. I mean, I even went to seminary because I was so afraid of going to hell. I was trying to hedge my bets. But the brutality that I experienced as a child, there's a substrata of people that take great pleasure in imposing suffering on children. And I was in that environment. And so as a result, I could say that religion has inoculated me against organized religion and cults and multi-level marketing.
Right.
And sometimes I would be envious of people that can go into a building and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I had to seek my divinity elsewhere. And what I discovered after many, 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 many years was that it's all in here. That when I think of praying, I think of summoning the divinity within, and that part that is connected to everything, So, but it's my experience.
That's what I love about the title of the book and the movie, the May I Be Frank, because not only is it almost a gory, raw image of all the things that you went through. So you're saying it with frankness, but you want to be yourself. You want to be frank. You want to be yourself. And I just love that title, because that's really what it's all about, is letting the the uniqueness shine through without being put into a box. I really want to talk a lot about cleansing and all the things that you have to go through. And at the Austin conference, Dr. Larry Palevsky gave an amazing moment of truth address that we have a link to. And he really explains that cleansing and reactions and mucus and, getting sick while you're supposed to be getting healthy is part of the process. Don't suppress the symptoms, right? And so this movie to me shows exactly what happens when you let it all out, right? I mean, you went through it. Everybody goes through it if you do it correctly. And it's not just about eating whole wheat bread. That could take 20 years if it ever happens at all. You did it in 42 days, and this is what, 20 years ago, right?
Yeah, well, it was 42 days was the initial thing as you saw the film. The thing, one of the most frequently asked questions I received on the road, and the film changed my life. I would characterize my life and my development as a human being as repeatedly stumbling into grace. I'd love to tell you I went to a Tony Robbins seminar and I walked on coals, and when I got past the last coal, boom, the expansion of my consciousness was spectacular. And that's not the case for me. It was incremental. And people, the most frequently asked question that I received was, what's that one thing? It's almost like that movie City Slickers. What's that one thing that motivated you? It was a confluence of things. It was the attention I was getting and the affection that I was receiving that I was so desperate for. It was taking deliberate steps to change the way I was taking care of my body. And all this at the three-legged stool, right? Mind, body, spirit. I've done. I remember I spoke for the International Association of Hydrocolon Therapists, and that was wild. And I saw some of the most unhealthiest people ever because they're focusing on this one thing, which is colonics, which is great, but nothing else. And they were so unhealthy. I've been to these health things where people that are selling all their different products in these convention centers, and like with hundreds and hundreds of vendors. And I asked a friend of mine, I went, they asked me to go with them, and I said, "How do you know who to buy what from? I mean, it's overwhelming." And they said, "Look at the people selling it." And I thought, wow, that was interesting. Because the overwhelming number of people selling whatever the supplement or product was either did not look healthy or did not look like they were particularly honest. And maybe that's a judgment. But for where I come from, you had to do that to survive. And so that my experience is that it's very holistic and very individual to the person that is seeking to have a transformational experience. And the other thing I would add is that in my experience, whether it was recovering from my addictions of drugs and alcohol, or the food, or learning how to be in relationships, that there is an interval of discomfort and sometimes pain that is, in my experience, inevitable to get to the other side of where you were. And that's usually, it always involves a period of brutal self-reflection, and a willingness to leap into the unknown. And it doesn't feel courageous. I mean, in retrospect, you were kind enough to call it courageous, but when you're going through it, that's the last thing you feel. You're lost and frightened and uncertain, but you keep doing it because what you were doing became unbearable.
Yeah, that's the excitement to me about having you on this show, is that I want people to understand that they need to actually go through something drastic or dramatic or emotional or uncomfortable in order to achieve the next step We're at 2 years into Maha between the campaign and now officially within the Trump administration, and I don't see anybody healthier at all, to be honest with you. There's more Ozempic and everything else, and people are just their consciousness is at an all-time low. There's a big focus on, steak, which means that it's, to me personally, that Maha's dead meat, and I really,
You really feel, Ray.
yeah, but I mean, I really, and I almost think that if the other side, the opposition, could make us focus on something, if they really wanted to derail us and put the fork in it, so to speak, it would be to focus on animal products rather than, living food and grains, pure grains, unadulterated, and healthy meats or healthy fats in moderation. Everybody thinks that this is just carte blanche to be able to go whole hog, so to speak, on everything they want to put in their mouths, and it's really a shame. Let me ask you something. If you were in charge, how could you make America healthy again, Frank?
I remember, I'm 74. I was alive during the John F. Kennedy administration, and I remember it well. And he had something called the President's Council on Physical Fitness. And there was a barrage of public service announcements everywhere about physical fitness. In this, I'm talking about even in the subway, right, in New York, there were signs showing guys or people doing a particular kind of exercise and inspiring people. And because so many people loved JFK, I mean, people certainly didn't too, but and of course, yes, there were flaws and all that. But for the sake of this, let's be specific about this particular issue. That people got into it, and it got into schools. I remember we had gym class. I mean, and you had to pass gym class. And it wasn't like you had to be an athlete, but you had to participate. So there was a campaign about that. And what I think what has to happen is, in my view, when people look at, like, say the grain, what you were talking about, I don't think that really fully addresses the issue. What really, in my view, what has to happen is something on a fundamental policy shifts that need to happen, because because we have Ray, how much more information do we need about what we need to do to stay healthy? I mean, what more, I don't know what else we could use, but when we have policies that release restrictions on Roundup and withdraw money from research. So at a policy level, where, for example, in Italy, where they have food police, for want of a better term, it's called something else, but they make sure that what is in something is what it is. Like when I go, when I say I buy cheese and in Italy, and say if I have to go to a store to buy it, on the package, it says cream that went through a centrifuge. That's it. It doesn't have anything you can't pronounce. People that can't eat bread here can eat bread in Italy without that gluten problem. So what I see is the problem in Maha is you may have a guy that talks about eating grain or whatever and eating pomegranate seeds, but if everybody around him is still committed to keeping the status quo and growing soy and corn for feed and all that stuff, it's just lip service. So, for example, you take the dye out of Doritos, but you still have the Doritos. So to me, it really has to be a fundamental paradigm shift, which requires the C word. Consciousness, right? And what we have now is I come from a working class Italian neighborhood in Brooklyn, and when I watch these guys, I'm thinking, don't you realize that we know you're full of baloney? Like, you know, and that also affects our mental health. Like, who do you trust? Who do you believe? You know, I mean, even the gratitude people now have gone the carnivore thing. You know, like they went from the raw vegan thing, and now they're in a completely different, paradigm. I don't know if you're aware of that or not.
No, I'm not.
You know, so
it's interesting to me that people find extremes. They find religion in food, and they go from one
right.
extreme to the next, and they don't just find, Socrates was right, moderation in all things, and we're feasting 21 times a week, to take the words from John Robbins. We need to just start consuming a whole lot less and being content within ourselves, so that we're not reaching out, because food is really just another addiction, isn't it?
I've been in that world for a very long time with addiction and recovery and counseling and all that stuff. Drugs and alcohol are symptomatic of a deeper underlying condition. And an addiction addiction can be described as as a practice that you engage in that is contrary to your best interest, and you continue to do it in spite of the consequences. So there's the underlying thing, there's an underlying condition that prompts a person to engage that part of the brain, to extreme dopamine release. And so when you think about it, like, look at what money has done to us. I mean, why in the world do you need more than $1 billion?
Yeah.
I mean, what is that? I mean, even more than 100 million. I mean, like, even if, you put $100 million in, even on a low yield bond, you still don't even have to touch the principal.
The point is that it's an addiction, partially because of the products that are in it, the processing.
Right. Well, that's true too.
There's 10,000 ingredients. The HHS secretary said we don't even know what they are, and a lot of them are meant to be addictive. And so what you have is a full, a full gas tank and an empty gas gauge.
Right, exactly.
What you have is that you're saying I'm starving. That obesity is really a starving situation. I have to wrap up here, Frank, and I want to thank you so much for your comments. And I just want to have everybody left with one last thing. And what is it that inspires you, my friend?
Love.
Great. It's been an honor, sir. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for asking me, Ray. It was really good to see you.
Okay, we are live. So first of all, you tell us your name.
I'm Susan Steffens.
And this is?
Katrina Busa.
How old are you, Katrina?
30 years old.
30 years old.
Yes.
Okay. We're having to do this interview outside the bus because she's unable to get up onto the bus. This is how bad her injuries are. Right? Okay, so talk about the first injury, which is the HPV injury.
She got the HPV vaccine on a, the doctor, she tried to make me feel terrible that my kids could get it, and she insisted, she had to have it. It was so for it, and after that, she was the child, any problem until vaccine, and all of a sudden she would start passing out, and we wouldn't want to wake up. We'd have to snap to get her to wake up.
How old is she?
15.
15. How old are you when you were there?
Oh, I don't remember.
25.
25, and that's your baby. Beautiful baby.
Thank you.
And the doctors gave her sleeping pills because she was not sleeping well after the baby. Of course, all new mothers know this. But I had constantly told her, don't take these sleeping pills before John gets home from work. That was her husband. She was married. And I said, you can't do that because if you pass out, you won't wake up. Well, she thought he was on his way home from work and didn't know he was stopping off. She took the sleeping pills because the baby went to bed, and he didn't end up coming straight home. She had one of the episodes and quit breathing and didn't wake up. We don't know how long she was without oxygen. When he got home from work, she was 40% O2 sat. I lived here in Tennessee. I had moved here a month before this happened to her. So I ended up, my parents stayed with my children here, and I ended up going up there and taking care of her for a year while she, recovered from this brain injury that she got. They wanted to pull the plug. She was so bad.
What do you mean by pull the plug?
They told us she would never live, that she would never
Were you on a ventilator?
recover. Yes. She was on a ventilator, ended up being trached.
Terrible.
You can see the hole from the trach.
Are these tremors you're having now?
Yes.
Does this happen a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she can't stop them. And now this is after, she was still recovering, but you can see her face. This is before the COVID vaccine. We got her doing pretty well. And
is this HPV here?
yes, this is after the HPV. That's what caused the brain injury when she, took the sleeping pill and had the attack, how she would just drop.
I think we've seen this one,
Yeah. But you can see in her face how she was coming back to life.
After the HPV? So
After the HPV. Yes, she started to heal. We got her walking. She even walked without a walker, but I couldn't find the video of her walking with just a cane. And actually, I don't even think you had the cane in that last video. And then we had the HPV, or the COVID vaccine.
I need to ask you why on earth you took a COVID shot when you had such an injury.
You tell.
My grandma.
Your grandma.
Did I beg you not to take it?
Yes, you did, Mom.
I begged Grandma not to make her take it.
So Grandma wanted you to take it?
Yeah, and because she wanted me to go to a nursing home facility.
She wanted you to what?
Assisted living.
Yeah.
The brain injury made her very hard to live with. She has outbursts. She would cuss her grandma out, and she cusses a lot now. It's very common with brain injuries. She'll just kind of go off the deep end and be disrespectful.
All right. Well, so Grandma said get a COVID shot. Which one did you get?
I got
Pfizer.
2 Pfizers?
Yes. And one of them was one of the bad batches, right?
Yeah, I looked it up. One of the bad batches for the second one, I think, was the bad one.
So after the first one, were you okay or not good?
No, I was not good at all.
She wasn't great at all. And as soon as she got the second one, before she went into the facility, or was it right after you went into the facility, she got right back into the wheelchair. She started the tremors all over the place. She couldn't stand anymore. She got weak. But see, I lived here, so I wasn't able to be with her and get her the proper care that she needed because I was here, she was there. It's just been an absolute nightmare. Her husband divorced her, and I moved her closer to be by him, up in Illinois, and then they got her to sign that they could move to the east side of Tennessee. So then I got her moved here so that I could help take care of her because she had nobody there.
So where's the son? Where's your son?
Kingsport, Tennessee.
Kingsport.
With the father?
Yes.
So you don't have your son?
No.
So this has literally destroyed your life?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the worst part is, trying to get any type of doctor, the neurologist that we're seeing here actually agrees, that the COVID shot's not very good at all. And she's seen a lot of damage from it, she said.
So you did this for your grandmother?
Yeah.
But after the first Pfizer, you didn't feel well.
No.
Did you tell the doctor you don't want to have another one because you don't feel well?
Did she made me get one?
They went
The
to
doctor?
Jewel. No.
Yeah, I went
The grandmother?
to Jewel.
The grandmother wanted her to have it. But
what does the grandmother say now about it?
She still doesn't believe that it did any more damage to her. People are so brainwashed. No. She meant well. She didn't mean to hurt her. People really believe that these things work, but I kept trying to say she's already had a vaccine injury. Please do not get her another one. Until somebody actually realizes and sees the damage it's done to other people and associates it with the damage that it did to themselves, if they aren't affected by it, they don't realize what's happening. They believe that anybody in a white coat that tells them to do something, they just do it. And
so what is your life like now compared to what it was like before?
I hate it. I hate it so much.
You hate your life?
Yeah.
She lives in a nursing home at this point right now because I can't take care of her. I don't have room in my house, and I've had major spinal surgery, so I can't lift on her, I can't tug on her. But we're going to get her walking again. We're determined. We just had the surgery to fix the dropped foot that nobody in Illinois would touch.
My tendon.
That's where I met the lady who told us about the bus, was at the foot doctor, because I wanted to get her walking again. But you see, she shakes randomly and you can't stop it, so.
Are you on a lot of medication?
Yeah.
That's what they'll do when you're in these places.
The bipolar disorder has gotten so bad, with the vaccines. I believe that all the childhood vaccines contribute to these ADHD and bipolar and all the stuff that's happening to these children these days. But I didn't put it all together. It's like the Great Awakening. One day you just wake up and you see what, I feel terrible that I've poisoned my children. And I did it, all my children had it. And so my other two children gained 30 pounds within 3 months of getting the HPV. But they don't let us have him either.
5 years old.
5, yeah. We would like to, she's got the divorce says she can see the baby, but we haven't got to have him for a weekend or anything yet, which we're hoping soon we'll get to. But we're just trying to get her to where she's actually able to go to the bathroom and stuff by herself now that we've got her back here. So she's able to what do you call it?
Transfer?
Yeah, transfer.
Describe her before the HPV injury. Describe what her life was like compared to now. You look like so healthy.
She was a deputy coroner for a while, and she did that. And then she was
a good dog groomer too.
She was a very good dog groomer, and she stayed very busy and active. And
I used to run on my treadmill too.
Yeah, had a lot of friends.
Treadmill,
yes.
Yep.
And I lost a bunch of weight after my son was born in Florida, actually.
Yeah.
I had my son in Florida. So
yeah, she was
so croaky because of when you were vented. Has it been like that?
No, she's just crying now. Right now, she's upset. But
what else do you want to tell people about this?
Do all your research before you give your children anything, because you can't take it back, and they just want to keep lying and denying because it's all about the money. They don't care about you. It's lies. The companies that give you these drugs, they're the companies that are doing the research, and then don't trust the FDA. That's all I can say. Do not trust.
I agree.
You're great. Well, I'm truly sorry this has happened to you. It's awful.
Thank you.
We're just hoping that somewhere there's something that can help her get back to normal, that there's some miracle. We pray every day. We already had her walking once, so the COVID vaccine did this to her and put her back in the wheelchair. We're hoping that we can get her back again. God is good. That's
no more vaccines.
No more, ever.
Ever.
What about where you're living? Do they make you have them?
No.
I'm her power of attorney, so
And
I don't.
I have had to decline every single time, and it's on my form that I do not want.
I told him not to even offer them. She's not to take any. So.
And I am a full code. If anything were to happen to me, I'm full code. So I want all measures taken for my son.
She's beat it once, and like I said, they wanted all the way up until, it was crazy. They were offering comfort care. It was almost like they wanted her to die to take her organs. And I know that please don't think that's a conspiracy theory. I'm telling you, they pushed for me to pull the plug, for the husband to pull the plug. And I tell him, my daughter's there. She's coming back. She's coming back. The whole time. I video recorded every single step of the way. I still have every video from the day she went on the vent to the day she got out, to the day she walked herself to the car with the walker and got in to go home. I got it all. And I can feel thinking.
And you know what?
I'm like, no, my daughter's there.
I'll tell you what, when my stepfather passed away on my graduation day in high school, it was, I saw God when I was in a coma, because I didn't. It was just an awful experience for me, and I miss him so much.
But you're coming back. She's going to do it. She's gonna. We just have to keep pushing her. She's got a very short attention span at this point, so I have to keep reminding her, keep moving, keep moving, keep moving, because she was so atrophied from sitting in the chair. So we're getting there.
Yeah.
Well, I thank you for sitting here and telling the story and for being such a brilliant mom.
Well, I'm trying. I feel bad for that last little bit. I wasn't able to be there, but I have younger children that needed me here. If I had known this was going to happen, I would have never moved, obviously, but we moved right before she had the baby and all this happened. So, but we definitely are getting better doctors here. Tennessee, they actually care. Her foot doctor's amazing.
Oh, Dr. Kamal is amazing.
I would tell anybody to see him.
Yes.
Well, thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.